We start the topic of anatomy and physiology, and that is chapter 6. Today we're going to focus on the cellular biology. Let's taking a look at, as we begin the concept of cells. Cells, we notice, are living units. They're the tiniest unit that are part of our body. We have trillions of little cells. And these cells come in and join together, and as they join together, they form tissues of very specific tissues. For example, tissues of the heart, tissues of lungs, tissues of various parts of our body. And these tissues coming to become layered then form organs. Organs then, in combination with other organs like heart and blood vessels, they form what we call body systems. And the 11 body systems that we will take a look at in detail, as we'll look at the structure as well as the function of those. And those overview is skeletal system, which hold us together and allow certain movements in our body, and those are skeletal systems. Then to move those skeletal systems, to create that momentum, is muscular system, muscles around the skeleton. And then to communicate and sensation, allowing the muscles to move, as well as our own sensations in our body, is all done through the nervous system. To supply the blood and supply nutrition is done in combination with the heart, blood vessels, and that is the circulatory system, joined in with the lungs as well to provide the oxygen. Then the defense mechanism is called lymphatic or immune system. That's our body's defense mechanism. Then our growth, which is hormones, are all done through the endocrine system. Our food intake and the energy formation is all nutrition value that we get out of food is all managed by the digestive system. And then the elimination of waste products is done through the excretory system. And our breathing of oxygen and releasing of carbon dioxide is done through the respiratory system. And then our integumentary system is the skin that surrounds our entire body and keeps the body intact and protected as well. Then we have the reproductive system, and that's the growth of the species, specifically the human race, as we are talking about our own bodies as well. Now that we have an overview through cells, tissues, organs, and body systems, and so let us now get an overview of the learning objectives. And these learning objectives are rather wide, or shall we say large overview. So begin with defining and explain why the study of three things. We have the anatomy, and we have the physiology, as well as the histology. So anatomy is the structure, physiology means the function, and histology is the fine structure, the very fine structure that is also microscopic at microscopic levels. And so some aspects of that we will also see. And why are these three things important to an esthetician? Second learning objective is, we begin, as we said, we will describe cells. We will look at their structure and the reproduction as well. And what happens inside those cells is very critical to that they function with one other cells of the similar cells, or the same type of cells when they create what? Tissues. So tissues, and tissues then will come together to form organs, and organs will come together and will form body systems. And how many body systems are we talking about? We are talking about 11. Okay, so a little bit of review there. And define tissue and identify the types of tissue found in the body. There are 4 types that we will be looking at as we get into the tissue area. Name the 9 major body organs. So we did talk about tissues forming organs. There are about 9 that are major. Of course, there are many more, quite a number more, but we're going to be looking at the 9 major organs. And then how many body systems? 11 body systems. And explain their basic functions. We already kind of did a little bit of that, but as we look at the text of the book, we will explain it in rather in depth. The 3 key terms that we begin with right here: define, explain why we study anatomy, physiology, and histology. We already looked at that. Let's take a look at these 3 key terms. What is anatomy? What is physiology? And what is histology? Anatomy is the structure. So I'll just draw a body structure, let's say. Physiology is the function. So if we have, let's say, an arm and the movements that are happening of the body, up and down and moving around, that's the physiology. How does that happen? Then we look at the histology, and the histology is microscopic. Microscopic structures within a particular organ or particular tissues. So we begin with anatomy as the book describes it. Anatomy is the study. What kind of study? Of the structures of the human body. So what are we focusing on? We're focusing on structures. And this type of structure is not fine structure, what can be seen with the naked eye. That means without using a microscope. Because if we're using microscope, then we are going to be talking about histology. But at this time, we're talking about anatomy. Anatomy is large structures that are easily seen with the naked eye. And of what substances they are made. So what 2 things are we going to look at? Structures and how are these structures structured? In other words, what are they made out of? And so it is, here's a little bit of summary. It is the science of the structure of organisms or of their parts. So we're looking at the large structure perhaps. So let's say we have a large structure, and then we look at the subparts of that. So it could be subdivided. And that's the concept that anatomy brings in. Well, then we look at physiology. Physiology is, again, a study. What kind of study is it? Of functions and activities. So how does something function, and how does it, what environment does it function in? How do the things move about, and what kind of activities is something involved in? And those are the functions and the activities that we can see them in examples of movements. So functions and activities performed by the body structures. So, and what is body structures again? That's the anatomy. Okay, and that's the anatomy. And then we have physiology is its function. Then last we look at histology. Histology, also known as microscopic anatomy. So we are looking at structures, but we're looking at now structures on a microscopic level. It is the study of tiny structures found in living tissue. So we're focused on tissue and how those tissues are, what microscopic structures do they have, is where we talk about histology.